Good evening. I call to order the March meeting of the Florence City Planning Commission. And on behalf of our commissioners and staff, we want to thank you all for being here. It's really important for your participation. This is the people's business that we do, and having your input, participation is very important, and I commend you for being here tonight on a beautiful day like today. The first item on the agenda is our invocation. I'm going to ask Mr. Keith if he would do that for us, please.
Let us pray. Gracious and Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for another day's journey. God, we thank you for your grace and we thank you for your mercy. Now we ask that you will come into this meeting, lead us, guide us, and direct us as we go through these deliberations. It's in Christ's name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Our next item on the agenda is approval of last month's minutes. Commissioners have received their packets. They've had a chance to review. If there are no changes or suggestions, corrections, I'll call for a motion.
Motion approved.
Have a motion and a second to approve as submitted. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you. The next item is a public hearing and matter in position for action. That means that there will be an explanation for the applicant that is presented by the staff. And then after, if there are no further questions of the commissioners, I'll open up the public hearing. And when I do, I'll ask someone that is, if they are against something that's being requested, I'll ask them to come up. If you'll come to the podium, give us your name, and I will limit that to 3 to maybe 5 minutes. And if there are a good many people getting up, I'll probably limit it to 3 or 4 people. And then I'll ask the one that is for that request to come up and either try to explain some of the concerns and certainly give their position. There will be no discussion within the audience, please. If you have anything to say, you have to come to the podium. Also, when you do come to the podium, I ask that you address the commissioners and not address anyone in the audience specifically. All right, so good evening.
Good evening.
Staff report, please.
All right. This is a request, 2025-12, request to amend section 1-2.8.6A6 of the Unified Development Ordinance regarding tower and antenna structures. And this is for cell phone towers, and in this case it's an electrical tower. And the ordinance currently, the request has been made by Duke Energy to amend the ordinance, and request to amend the ordinance as technology changes and such things can be made through staff, and that was the case here. Currently, the code states that tower or antenna structures need to be separated from the boundary line of a residential district or the property line of a residential use by a distance equal to 1 foot for each 1 foot in height measured from the property line. So, for example, a 300-foot tower has to be 300 feet from the nearest residential property line. But they are requesting to amend the ordinance to allow towers or structures to be separated from the boundary line of the residential district or use by a distance equal to or greater than the tower's fall zone. With new technology, apparently they are here that can explain it much better than I can. But towers have been designed now to fall in on themselves instead of just tipping over. And so they're requesting that portion 6, number 6, is just this one part of the conditions that would need to be changed, that they would be separated from the boundary line by a distance equal to or greater than the tower's fall zone as certified by a professional licensed engineer and measured from the boundary line of the residential district or property line of the residential use. So they, again, they feel that modern tower design adequately addresses the potential risk in the unlikely event of a tower collapse, and industry standard towers are designed to collapse inward rather than to the side, and that would typically be a much smaller radius than the full height of the tower. So towers designed this way have less risk to neighboring parcels and require less distance than between the tower and property lines. And they did provide staff with several jurisdictions, and I believe I would put it in your packets as well, that have adopted language that does address the fall zone instead of just the pure height of the tower. So, for example, this proposed 300-foot tower that they need to replace could have a fall zone as little as 150 feet, and thus have a setback of 150 feet. But right now it would have to be 300 feet. And they are putting it in the same location as one that's been there for a long time, but it will be just enough higher that they would then fall into that setback restriction. So that's part of the reason they're asking, plus just going forward for this amendment to the code. And that concludes staff's report.
Well, that's, yeah, okay. I'll just sit back. Anyway, I'm glad Duke is here to give us more detail on that. We'll certainly give you a chance to come forward and explain it in more detail. Do the commissioners have any questions of staff before I open the public hearing?
I do.
Okay.
So if they have a specific site that the antenna is going to be higher, why not just change this just for that specific site?
Because I think since it is a change in materials and just new technology, that it just seems wise going forward instead of changing it every single time.
What location is this?
This is up on North Douglas Street.
And I will mention that this, in our code, this is a special exception. And special exceptions have to go to Board of Zoning Appeals for approvals. And they have to demonstrate that they meet all requirements of that special exception, and then the Board of Zoning Appeals can approve the request. And in our code, it specifically says that special exceptions can't request a variance for relief from those conditions. So that's why, because our first instinct was, well, we'll just take it to the Board of Zoning Appeals and apply for some relief in this situation. However, under our new Unified Development Code, it prevents us from doing that. So when we started researching the issue and talking to Duke about it, the newer technologies and the way towers are designed now, it made more sense to define it from a fall zone standpoint as opposed to the 1-to-1 ratio that is in our current code. So that's where all this derived from. And as such, even if this is approved, it would still have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals because it is a special exception, and they would have to demonstrate that they meet all requirements of the special exception. Does that make sense?
It
That's why
does,
we couldn't
yeah.
do it just for this site.
So how much higher are they asking?
I think
reducing.
10
They're
feet.
reducing they're reducing the height.
Mm-hmm. And they're completely there's an existing tower that's about 290 feet or so, and they're going to tear that tower down and erect a new tower. And our code says that if a property, any non-conforming use, if it is completely removed or removed more than 50%, then it has to comply with current standards when it's put back. So that's another reason they couldn't essentially go back with exactly what's there, because they're completely removing, demolishing the existing structure.
Thank you, Mr. Lawhorn. Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, I will open the public hearing portion of this. As instructed, I said that anybody that is against or has questions concerning this, I'll raise your hand, and you're welcome to come forward. I see no one, so I will switch it over to those that are far. I hope that Duke will be getting up, and thank you very much. If you'll give us your name when you get to the podium, please.
Yes, sir. Greeting, commissioners. I'm Sarah Sproul from the law firm of Hainsworth Sinclair Boyd. Duke Energy is asked me to be here to sort of MC any presentation with the questions the board may
Well,
have.
thank you for being here.
As we fully agree with what planning staff reported about the application. The issue here is so it's a 300, the current tower is a 299-foot tower with a 17-foot lightning rod. It's end of life, out of date, needs to be replaced, and the current vision is for a 300-foot tower with a 10-foot lightning rod. So it will be slightly shorter, but the changes to the development ordinance mean that they're back to the drawing board as far as the special exception, and the tower requirements aren't waivable on the zoning side of the equation. So that is why we're here for the text amendment with the Planning Commission. The formal plan will have to go through the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval for the exact requirements and whether a special exception will be given. So really, we're just here to talk about the text amendment tonight. You've seen in your materials that there are other jurisdictions doing the same thing nearby. And I have some technical experts here if y'all want to ask about how fall zones work and why we really believe as a safety concern the fall zone is an adequate protection for neighboring residential uses.
I absolutely would like for them to come up.
And we've got this model tower. It doesn't collapse, but we've got a visual aid for the commission's consideration.
Thank you, gentlemen. If you would give us your names, please.
So, my name is Patrick Bernier. I'm Senior Project Manager for Duke Energy. I'm in charge, and my team is replacing towers in our entire footprint. So we have a lot of towers in the Midwest, Florida, the Carolinas. This isn't just the only jurisdiction that we're doing this in. So just kind of as an introduction, we're doing this, like she said, about this tower, the existing guide tower out there is end of life. It's got a carrier on it. They want to do tech upgrades. We want to add some antennas to it. It just won't support all that. So the new tower will support all of that and Duke Energy's future technology potential that we have in the next 10, 20, 30 years. We do consider these like 50-year lifespans. So the tower that's been out there, I think, was built in the 60s or something like that. So it's time to replace it.
And that's a single pole, right?
It is. A guide tower is a single structure
Yeah.
with 3 guide wires out to each side.
Now, what do you do with the, are you going to need the same amount of guy wire?
Now, this
is
is
required. So what are you going to do with all that extra land that the guy wire was stretching out to prevent?
So we're going to replace the guide tower with the self-supporting tower.
Right.
So no guide wires will be needed.
Right.
The current plan is we'll remove all of the guide wires, the tower, the anchors, and demo everything 3 foot underground. So it'll either be back to substation, we'll free up that space for substation use,
Okay,
or transmission use, or some other Duke Energy use.
excellent. All right, and this gentleman is going to tell us how it implodes from the inside.
Yep, so I'm Caleb Jurgensen. I work for Burns McDonnell, consulting engineer on behalf of Duke Energy. I am a licensed engineer in the state of South Carolina. So a little bit on how fall zones work and why they work is the tower member sizes as you go up vary in overall diameter, thickness, and material grade, and so it often isn't the most cost-effective solution, but you can oversize the bottom members of the tower so that they're much larger than they need to be, so that your critical stress point exists somewhere up on, like, towards the top of the tower, and you can kind of pick and choose those member sizes so that under design conditions, your highest utilization member exists up towards the top, so that under, like I said, from a design standpoint, if that event were to happen, that would be the member that would fail and cause the tower to fold about itself, as opposed to failing at, kind of how your UDO currently states, at the base of the tower, resulting in the whole tower falling over. It would happen towards the middle or upper portion of the tower, so that it would then fold down onto itself as opposed to completely tipping over.
Have you got evidence and examples of that happening?
Not with me, but
I'm just saying, has it happened and proven itself to be accurate?
I do not know off right now, but I mean, because ultimately the tower is designed not to fail, right? So now you get into what actual MRI event happened and how it went about happening. Those can change.
So let me ask you this, is there potential danger to the next door neighbor if you encroach in a little closer because of this design and it doesn't work? And consequently it falls, now it's a 300-foot buffer for a 300-foot tower. And I assume that Duke is asking to reduce that buffer and still have a 300-foot tower. Is that correct?
That would be correct, yes.
Yeah. All these other municipalities, I did not read all of them. I was impressed with the list. Obviously, it was favorable language. My question is, did they all agree to reducing that protection area?
We have seen that across many other UDOs, and it's very typical process, right? With general design flow, if you design something to perform a certain way and it doesn't, that comes back to the responsible engineer in charge.
Ms. Brule, is that something that your firm addresses as far as liability in the event that that design doesn't work? I'm not against the design. I'm just trying to learn. I'm sorry. I'm all
So
for this.
fortunately, to my knowledge, there are no examples of a fall design tower failing at the base, which is your concern. But there are, in the UDO, there are indemnity, I believe, indemnity requirements when you apply for the special exception. There are some other protections out there.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions?
Yes,
I figured.
I have a couple.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So around this site, I'm assuming residential areas increased since you put this tower up, correct? What's the closest adjacent residential housing or?
The property line to one side of the tower is like around 175 feet. So where we want to put the tower is on the existing compound where the guy tower is. So the 300 foot would put us, we couldn't build it because of the 300 foot. The 300 foot from the property, those residential properties, is all the way next to a transmission line. So we don't want to have it that close to the substation and that far away from our communications compound.
You'd rather just let it fall on a residential house, or? I'm
Well,
being facetious. I'm just kidding.
So yes, the idea would be that essentially the tower was going to fold in half. If it failed again, it would lay down, 150 feet. So again, within Duke's property.
Sure.
Mr. Moses?
I'm curious about this. You had a 17-foot lightning rod up there now, and you gonna take 7 foot off that lightning rod?
Yeah. So the tower, which I mean isn't specifically what we're talking about tonight, but the new tower is an entirely different setup, and that 10-foot lightning rod is all that's needed for the new tower. So.
Excuse me, Mr. Moses, you bring up a good point. Our job tonight, commissioners, is not to get into the technology, decide if they should put that there.
Well, I just want to know.
I know, I was curious too.
Why you taking away 7 foot off of a lightning rod?
Yeah.
Which is supposed to be securing, that lightning rod is supposed to be securing the residents and all around of the powers there. Am I right or wrong? Did the lightning hit it?
So that's not directly correct. The lightning rod, the intention of the lightning rod on the top of the tower is to protect the equipment that's on the tower from overvoltage. So the tower itself is a part of the overall electrical infrastructure grid and allows Duke Energy to communicate between stations and amongst emergency personnel. The tower itself is not electrical in nature or directly, like, it's not a direct component of the electric grid.
They wouldn't serve the same purpose as on top, if you had lightning on top of your house, that's what you're saying.
Effectively, the lightning rod protects the equipment from a lightning strike via grounding conductor that goes down to a ground ring around the base of the tower.
Do we have a schematic of the residential layout that's around this?
No, because this was not for specific, this was just to change the code.
I mean, it's
You
going
know,
to affect, if it falls, it's going to affect the surrounding
Yes.
people, right, and residents.
And that will come up, there is a public hearing with the special exception
Got it.
before the BZA.
And I am guilty for starting this in a different direction. We are here to address the amendment to that section.
Well, I mean,
And
Mr.
that's
Chairman,
not
that's
your
going to
fault.
open up a can of worms all over the county,
I
in the
started
city,
it,
everywhere. you
and
know?
I apologize. I think our job tonight is to either approve or deny the request to amend. Gentlemen, madam, thank you. If there are no further questions.
So the fall zone currently is 310 feet, the length of the tower, is that right?
Under the current ordinance,
Under the
that would be
current
the
ordinance.
requirement, but this is, I believe, a non-conforming structure prior to the passage of this is an old tower, and that's part of the reason it's different also. The newer technology has different components, so the shorter lightning rod would also be a function of the new tower design.
And they're fully demolishing, so because if it's more than 50%, they have to get approval.
Right, right.
And I will state that the design criteria for the new tower will greatly exceed the design criteria that was used for the tower that is in place adjacent to residential structure.
If the tower fell now that's currently there now, you have a 300-foot buffer for that 300-foot tower to fall in, right?
Well, except it doesn't, because it's a non-conforming structure, it sits in the same location we're talking about, so it's not 300 feet away.
Okay, I got it. That's why I'm trying to visualize. I can't visualize, I'm asking questions about that. That's
Yeah,
fine.
no, it's
okay.
less than the 300 feet away, but it needs to be replaced. It's at the end of its life, and Duke is hoping to upgrade it with a modern tower.
I've always felt that 3 legs are better than 1, so.
So actually, you're thinking that once, if this is approved, and you go through all the hoops that you have to go through, it'll actually be a safer environment. Is that what you're thinking?
The design criteria for the new tower will be in excess of what the existing one is, with lower utilization ratios based on the current structural analysis. Yes.
If you lose one guide wire now, you got a 300-foot tower. What I was getting to is if you lose one guide wire currently, you got a 300-foot tower that's going to fall on somebody within 150 foot of where it is. The new design will effectively, well, on paper, as an engineer, fold on itself and maybe protect a little bit more. I'm comparing the two things. So it actually protect a little bit more than one guide wire falling, a 300-foot tower falling on somebody versus the 3 legs and just folding itself. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
and the design criteria for the tower specifically that Duke's building and builds across their grid are in excess of the residential code structural requirements. So there's a really good chance that if the design worked like it did and somehow still magically failed at the bottom, that house likely isn't there either. So.
That's a good point. All right, anyone else would like to get or speak on behalf of this request? Thank you all very much.
We thank you.
With that said, I'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Motion to approve?
Have a motion? Do I have a second? Have a motion and a lot of seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it. I'm sorry for the course and the lecture we just went through, but it was very interesting to us. And so thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you. We appreciate the commission's time.
All right, so PC 2025-13, Ms. Elaine?
Yes.
Staff report, please.
All right, this is a request to amend the Somerset Acres Plan Development District Standards, and this does affect a specific parcel, tax map number 00100-01-248. This parcel is located at the intersection of South Cashua and Jefferson Drive, right in front of Del May School. And it is owned by and part of the planned development called Sunset Acres, which encompasses a single-family neighborhood as well as apartments. And as you can see, here's the planned development. Covers both sides of Jefferson Drive. The owners would like to, well, right now it is zoned where that portion is zoned commercial. And this is the original planned development, which is where, and you'll see different spellings of Somerset Acres as well. I just took it off of this original planned development plan. And there's about 3.5 acres in the upper right corner there that was zoned B3, general business, which did allow apartments, but at a lesser density. And so the applicants are wishing to take about 210 feet width of that and changing the density of it, changing the zoning to the multifamily residential so that they can have the higher density, and they would just mirror what's already there. And you can see it, it's a very faint, but it's red square. I just took and mirrored it. So they just want to add 4 more buildings to just basically move the multifamily farther down Jefferson, closer to Cashua Drive. But it is in keeping with the planned development, and the only reason they need to amend the planned development agreement is because they wanted that slightly higher density. And you've got the page in there that talks about the densities at the different zoning designations in the planned development. So that is why they want to and it would only affect that portion. It would leave the remainder business in case they decided to put businesses along Cashua Drive there. So that concludes staff's report.
Thank you very much, staff. Any questions? Any questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Hearing none. Again, public hearing time. Is there anyone that would like to voice their opinion against or have questions concerning your concerns about this? If so, please raise your hand. Seeing none, I'll ask anyone that would like to speak on behalf of this request. It's not necessary. You're welcome to come forward if you just feel like you need to. And I see no one, so I will close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Move to approve.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay, and the ayes have it unanimously. Okay, PC 2025-14. This is a request to annex and zone NC 6.2. Staff report, please.
All right, this is a simple one. This parcel is located at 1006 West Marion Street, tax map number 960-13005. It is a part of the donut hole along West Marion Street, between Marion and West Darlington Street. Everything around it, except for the 2 immediately adjacent lots and the ones behind it, are already in city limits. The owner contacted me. She just wants to get city services. And so everything around it is zoned NC 6.2, I believe it is. So she wants to do that as well. So this, and it's in keeping with the future land use of neighborhood conservation. Here's a picture of it. The house is burned out, and one of the city services she would like is to have help demolishing it and then rebuilding on that site. So that concludes staff's report.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lane. Any questions of staff, of the commissioners? This is a public hearing. If there are no further questions, I will open the public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to speak against this request or have questions, you know the routine. You're welcome to come forward. Seeing no one, if there's someone, and you are against or for? Okay, please come forward. Your name, please.
Carol McLean.
Ms. McLean, thank you for coming forward.
I have property adjacent to this, and I was more or less than against it. I just have a question as to how that's going to impact those areas, those properties around it that are not in the city. Can you answer that for me?
Staff can do that, and that's a great question, and that's why we invite, whether you're for or against it, if you have questions like that, it's good that you come forward. Staff, would you?
The short answer is it will not affect you at all. We're not annexing anybody that has not applied to annex, so nothing will change for you.
And is that one property or two?
Just the one.
Can you give me the dimensions for that?
I believe it is about, I want to say it was like 45 feet wide and 100 some deep. It is just this parcel right here that's outlined in red.
Okay, well, given that information, I have nothing else to say.
Thank you for coming forward. All right, anyone else would like to speak against? Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor? Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public hearing and call for a motion.
Move approved.
Have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Any of you that might have an agenda or a schedule, this PC 25-15, I'm going to throw staff off a little bit. I'm actually going to move it back one and deal with a sketch plan approval kind of quickly because I think most of y'all are here for the request to annex in zone NC 6.3 at Toscana Drive. Am I correct in that? So with that particular one, I have to recuse myself. My company has a client relationship with the property owner. So our vice chair, Mr. Charles Howard, is going to step in as chair. But I would like to go ahead and take care of the sketch plan. They don't take very long. And then I have to go down and sit in the audience. So rather than going back and forth, please bear with me, and I apologize for the inconvenience. Staff, can I jump to sketch plan?
Certainly.
Okay. This will be PC 2025-16. This is a request for sketch plan approval.
Now, this is a very simple sketch plan. There's two lots right now along East Pine Street and South Gaylord Street, and you can see them here. They're two vacant lots, and they're fairly large for the neighborhood. And the request is to, and they're zoned NC 6.1, and or 6.2. The request is to subdivide them further, and anytime we have a subdivision of more than 4 parcels, it requires sketch plan review from you, even though this is just be probably restoring them to original lot sizes. But this is the sketch plan. They are going to take those 2 lots and subdivide them into 7 parcels for single-family homes. They all meet the standard design standards, lot sizes, and widths for the zoning designation, and they are in total compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance. So that concludes staff's report.
All right. Commissioners, questions?
Yeah, the city is the owner of these.
That's correct.
Yeah.
All right. Hearing none and no public hearing, I'll call for a motion.
Motion approved.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion and second to approve. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Like signs nay. The ayes have it. And I am turning the gavel over to my vice chair.
Good evening, and thank all of you for being here. The next item and last item on the agenda is PC 2025-15, request to annex and zone NC 6.3 a parcel along Toscana Drive identified as a portion of Florence County Tax Map number 00100-01-101. Ms. Elaine, we will turn it over to you.
All right. This is, the request is to annex a portion of this parcel that is at the intersection of West Palmetto and Toscana Drive in the county and immediately adjacent to the Villa Toscana subdivision. And as you can see here, the front portion of the parcel is a commercial use. It's a bit of a strip mall called the Home Center. And the applicant wishes to subdivide off the portion that's outlined in red and annex that into the city limits and zone it NC 6.3, which is a residential only use. And the I believe the intent is for to build townhouses there. As it is in the county right now, it is unzoned, and so anything could be placed there right now. Commercial use, pretty much anything. I think the county does have some restrictions on unzoned parcels, but there's no guarantee that it would be a residential use. So by annexing into the city the parcel and zoning it residential, he would be restricted to the residential use, and the city does have buffering and landscaping and other and development standards that would apply then to this parcel. So the future land use for it is commercial auto urban, but this would move it from a commercial use to a residential use. Now, but again, that would just apply to this portion. And here's a photo of it, and that concludes staff's report.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions of staff? Okay. At this time, then, we will open the hearing for public opinion. If you have something to say in opposition to this item, if you would please raise your hand. Okay. So as Chairman Chaplin instructed at the beginning of the proceedings, there are several people in the audience, so we will limit in the interest of time. If there are more than 3 or 4 folks either for or against this, then we would ask that we try to consolidate our opinions to those 3 or 4. I only saw 2 hands who raised in opposition, so if you 2 would like to come forward and speak, doesn't matter which one wants to come first. Sir, you can come forward. And just as a reminder, please state your name, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ken Winslow. I'm president of the Villa Toscana Homeowners Association. I want to tell you a little bit about our community first. This property does butt right up next to our property. We have a 213-foot long fence on their north side, and on the other side of this we have a sedimentation pond. We have a house on the northeast corner of this that's very close to this property, and we have a string of houses coming in off of Ebenezer Road. Our community right now is served by 2 roads. We got approximately a 900-foot road coming in from Toscana Drive, and approximately 400 feet of road coming into our community from Ebenezer Road. Now, last Thursday, I and one of our board members met with Miss Elaine. I'll just say her first name, and we had some conversations about a lot of things, and I think we made an agreement on some things. And what we were told at that meeting was that because of the Unified Development Ordinance, that the number of units that would be built here would be limited to 26. I think at the time we were there, they had a drawing that showed maybe 42 units on it. So I'm sure we'll have some members here tonight that will oppose this coming in here, but I'm really want to say what we agreed on. And I did have a conversation with the developer, Louis Hopkins, on Monday, and he said to me that, yeah, he plans to build 26 units and he may increase it. So of course, I'm concerned about the increase and as to what that may go to, realizing that you got so much square footage per unit. I think right now at this meeting, it's here to annex the property. And I think at some later date, plans will probably be provided showing what he plans to build there. They're not ready right now, although he had this first initial drawing. I would like to, I guess once it's annexed into the area, we probably can't do anything about it. You're going to go ahead and build it. But that was what we were told. We asked for several things, and I think we got approved several things. And Miss Elaine said that she would contact the City of Florence Water Department. I have a concern, our members do too, about the water supply into our community. The supply is pretty low. I think it's low based on my work experience, and the pressures are low. Of course, it's going to be low at certain times of the day, I realize that. But a couple years back, the fire department came out and tested the pressure in our system. It was at 35 PSI. I think you can go around Florence and you can find 50 or 60 pounds pressure throughout the area. So I'm hoping that Miss Elaine will get the city to come out and check our valves, make sure they're all operational and functional. We also discussed an easement area on the north side where our fence is, an easement area or a buffer area. The ordinance states that when you build a 2-story or even a 3-story building, if the buildings are higher than the homes, the existing homes in the community, that a buffer area would be required. I'm pretty sure we've got some homes right there at the site. One butts up to this property that's would be below that level. And of course, we've got them coming in off Old Ebenezer Road. So we certainly, in my opinion, need a buffer area in there to block out their view of our community. One last thing I'd like to say. In my conversation yesterday with Mr. Hopkins, I expressed our concern for maintaining the right-of-way on our 2 roads. Again, Villa Toscano Drive is roughly 900 feet long. For 20 years, our association has been maintaining the right-of-way. We mow it every 2 weeks once the season's here. The rest of the year, we do cleanup operations in the area every 2 weeks. We put a lot of money into these entrances. We fertilize it. We treat it for bugs and weeds. We irrigate it. We spend a lot of money. Just last week, we spent $1,700 repairing our irrigation system, all on Toscano Drive. So in our conversation, I asked Mr. Hopkins if he would commit to sharing in the cost of maintaining these right-of-ways. His comment was that he would, and I'm not saying I'm not against it, his comment was that he would maintain the east side of Toscano Drive, all the way from the beginning to our stop sign. And that's kind of where we are there. And I don't know if you can incorporate any of what I'm saying into what the next step is. I just hope that you can. With that being said, I'm sure some of our members will want to speak out against what's going ahead. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioners.
Any questions from the Commissioners? I have a question, Elaine. He referenced your meeting. Can you speak to some of these issues that he brought up? Is that
Well, like I explained to him, the code does definitely address townhouse development, and it has development standards for that, including the number of units that would be allowed. With this being a 1.4 acre parcel, the code calls for the maximum is 1 unit per 2,400 square feet, which works out to 26 units. So you would not be able to get more than 26 units on this. Probably bit fewer once you get parking and all that in there. All parking would have to be on site. None of it could be out on the street. And the buffer code requires that when you build a residential use that's higher intensity next to an existing single family, that the buffer intensity be bumped up a little bit as well. So the north property line there could have a buffer probably of about 10 feet with landscaping. So those would be the bare minimums of what the code requires.
Okay. So the issues, and the water, I assume you
That's
guys
a,
will check that.
that's
It's
a
not
public works
really
thing.
in our purview, but
Right,
you agreed to check that, I think.
yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like really all the issues you've sort of, the boxes are checked as far
Good.
as you're concerned.
Good.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay,
correct.
Perfect.
I have one question, John.
Sure,
Sorry, one
sure,
question.
sure.
I hadn't been out this way in a long time. What's to the? I can't make it out on this. What's to the north of? I think that's north. Are these townhomes adjacent?
In the
you-
reserve,
if you
there
look-
are
yeah.
townhomes directly to the right of,
Okay.
to the east, yes, of this parcel.
They don't connect. They don't.
They
connect,
don't, there's no connectivity.
But there's townhomes to the that way, right? To
Correct.
The, to the right.
To the east, yeah,
There's a pond. Okay, pond behind it.
yes.
Okay.
That's
Is that
it.
good?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks. George.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Winston.
Thank you, Commissioners.
There was one other hand raised, I think, up here. Please come forward. State your name for the commissioners.
My name's Bob Litchman. I live at 1090 Via Salvatore. That's the second house in from the pond. I was here 5 years ago. It's a different issue at the other end of the neighborhood. And we were decided against on that occasion. But what I learned from it was that the original intent of the overall plat map has to be maintained, from the intention of the people that developed the neighborhood and the people that live there, the expectations. And the meeting's on record, but it was March 10th, 2020, if anyone wants to look it up. It was article number PC 202007. And I know Elaine's familiar with it. And at that time, when I was dealing with that issue, I confirmed that the final plat map is also available in the building, the planning department. That plat was issued on June 18th, 2008, it was drawn by Nesbit Surveying, plat book 93, page 468, if you'd like to look that up. Basically, it shows the issue that Ken was describing, Mr. Wenzel, about our responsibility to take care of the entrances. And like I said, the last time I was here, it was made clear that this committee can't really change that without changing the original intent, which would be our HOA covenants. I'd like to know how access is going to be granted to this plot of land once construction would start. As I understand it, if we have to stay with, we do have to stay with that original plat map. It shows 2 strip centers that are already there and a spot for a third one in what is now the issue being discussed. But it also shows that we have that wall that you saw in the photograph, that would have to stay there as far as I understand it. So I don't know where the entrance would be to the new city property. I don't know if you can answer that, Elaine?
I don't know that we can answer that, but
Yeah,
Staff?
my understanding is that Toscana Drive is a city street. It's
Right.
a local street.
Right, but I'm talking about the original agreement between Florence and our developer and whoever else signs it, state of South Carolina, it's an incorporation. And it says that that street is intact with our common areas, not a common area. Our right-of-way is maintained by Villa Toscana. Like Mr. Wenzel said, we've been doing that. One thing he didn't mention is when I was involved with the HOA several years ago, I remember $9,000 spent on maintaining that brick fence that you saw. You know, 4 different areas were knocked over or fell over. So there's a lot of investment there by our community. I just hate to see it knocked down, you know, to put a new road or a new driveway. Is there any answer to that tonight, Elaine?
Not off the top of my head. I would have to look at the plan development
Yeah, you have it. It's
agreement.
the one I just mentioned, and you told me you had it.
Yes.
It was 5 years ago. Maybe somebody did house cleaning, but I can show it to you if you need it. This showed the entrance off of Palmetto Street, a truck entrance that went behind the existing shopping buildings, and 2 driveways cut through the brick wall that we had. It didn't show a third one. Okay, I have the same concerns as Ken Dunn. It's just my own concerns as an individual. He mentioned the water pressure. That's a real problem. Stormwater runoff, that's part of any development, right? You have to do an assessment of that. Traffic, I thought it was going to be late getting here because sometimes it's pretty hard to get out of our neighborhood. We either have to go over to Old Ebenezer or 76, West Palmetto. And I got stuck there quite a while tonight. Since I'm retired, I just don't go that way when it's busy with a lot of work traffic. I go about 10:30 in the morning or 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, I've read 3 articles in our morning news lately that this group was involved with. I think his name's Clint Moore, the assistant manager for the city. He was praising the work that's being done downtown at FDTC, underground utilities, and he emphasized that he likes cooperative efforts between the city and private individuals, such as our association. And then there was another article, I forget, I didn't write it down, but it emphasized maintaining the character of the existing neighborhood. And our neighborhood, at least phase 1, where I live, that's adjacent to that common area which is right next to this plot in question. Phase 1 was described as patio homes, and some of them have a room finished above the garage. So it's a 1-story house basically with a room above the garage. We had some 2-story houses, but they're farther down at the other end of that was phase 2 development, but phase 1 is adjacent. And I was curious too why the other neighborhood behind this plot in question wasn't notified by sign, because those townhouses back there that property is right up against this 1 1/4 acre or whatever it is. Who decides who gets notified?
Any immediately adjacent property owners did get letters.
They got letters. Okay, I didn't get a letter. I just saw a sign out in the neighborhood. Okay, so those are my concerns, and I guess we can't really answer those tonight because I'm all for annexing it. Personally, I like the city to be bigger and more wealthy. Not at my expense, but just want the city to continue improving. I like it here and like to stay a while. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any questions by the commissioners? Okay, thank you, sir. I think that, this process is a wonderful process that we go through as citizens in the city of Florence. And my experience has been that the city staff does as much as they can to sort of bridge gaps. And we don't always agree on everything, but we try to do the best that we can to sort of meet in the middle. And sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But I applaud those who had concerns, who spoke to the city and expressed those concerns, and then the city for listening, for the developer for listening as well. because that's really a collaborative process, and that's really what we're all about, understanding their concerns, trying to do the best you can to answer those concerns. So we've heard from 2 who were opposed. That was all the hands that I saw go up. Was there another, ma'am? Okay, come forward. Please state your name.
My name's Gloria Lucier, and I also live in Villa Toscana. And I just wanted to make a couple of things clear about this neighborhood, because you asked a question about whether these were townhouses next door and so forth. And the neighborhood that is next to us that you ask about is the Reserve. There are some beautiful owner-occupied townhomes there that are probably $300,000 plus townhomes in that neighborhood. There are 8 of them. Everything else over there is single-family homes, and they range in price probably from like $300,000 to $700,000. Our neighborhood is single-family homes now, mostly $300,000 plus. They're all single-family homes, and we've invested, many of us, our life savings in this single-family home neighborhood. And they're owner-occupied homes for the most part. Very few. In fact, our neighborhood now, our covenants now call for any home sold in there must be owner-occupied. So these quote, townhomes that they're talking about building here are not to be owner-occupied, or that's my understanding. They're talking about building 20-something rental units, which is completely different and incompatible with any of the neighborhoods around it. So imagine your own neighborhood that you live in, and you've spent your life savings on a nice home in a nice single-family neighborhood, and suddenly the whole neighborhood and everything around it is, for the most part, owner-occupied. So now they want to build these 20-something rental apartments right up next to our neighborhood. It's going to completely change the complexion of the neighborhood. And so if they're going to build 20-some units, there'll be practically no room for any kind of buffer and still have those townhomes there. And that road that comes into our neighborhood that they were talking about, we have, it's just our neighborhood that it services in that little bitty shopping area right now. That whole brick fence all the way down that, and that landscaping on either side of it that we maintain. We individually as homeowners spend a lot of money to maintain that because we want our neighborhood to be very nice because we've invested a lot in it. These apartments that are going to be right there, 20-something of them, will completely change our neighborhood. So just so you know, you think about your own homes and where you live and what you would want built right next to your neighborhood. And I read through, the unified code that Florence is supposed to be trying to maintain neighborhoods now that we have and not, devalue those homes. And I think this is going to devalue our homes. I was previously in real estate, and I can tell you from my experience that this will devalue our homes. And I know that had these apartment buildings, which they're calling townhomes, which is, in my opinion, a bit of a misnomer, if they had been there, I would not have bought in the neighborhood. It would change the neighborhood. So I hope that the developer or the builder, would reconsider what they're going to put there and if they're going to buy it to make it something more consistent with the homes that are surrounding it now. Because there's absolutely nothing else. If you look at the Reserve, I don't know how many of you have ever been into the Reserve. It's a beautiful neighborhood. Our neighborhood is very, very nice. And the city was very particular about us butting up to Rutledge Manor behind us. In fact, they made us have a common area and a buffer zone, and our homes are, very nice homes. They're just a little bit smaller lots than theirs. So apparently the developer had to jump through hoops to even be able to put our homes, and now we're talking about stepping way down in terms of how nice a development would be that butts up to us. So I would like for us to have the same consideration that apparently was given to our neighbors behind us when our neighborhood was built. And I know that there are people who have influence you know, this builder has a lot of influence, but I hope that this committee and that those of you who are here to help protect our neighborhood will do that.
And I appreciate your comments. Thank you very
I have
much.
a
Are there any
question,
questions?
Charles. I have a que- yeah, I have a
Ma'am,
question.
there's a question, if you don't mind.
I meant to ask it, but the others I just forgot. I'm sorry, and maybe you said it, but what is your understanding that can go there right now, as it sits? What's your understanding that can be put there right now?
Well, I heard what you just said about that anything could go there, and I understand that. But there would be very few things that could go there that I would object to more than what's going there, but whole massive rental units, because it's going to be so dense there. There are so many cars, so many, you know, it's very different. Even if another commercial building went there, that, you know, I would say that would be better for us. You know, there's that little strip mall there. If the strip mall extended down, you know, that would be better for us. So, you know, I suppose if the people that own it, it sounds like they could build whatever they want to. But so far they haven't in 20 years. And, you know, I mean, but if it's going to be annexed into the city, then it's right next to us. And the city would then be responsible for protecting us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I tend to agree. I think the dilemma here is that they could build what they want, and there are no rules, and there's no regulation, there's nobody watching over it. The city, if it were to be annexed into the city would be supervising that entire process. So, but I hear you. It is a dilemma. In the interest of time, though, let's move forward to those in favor of this. Is there anyone here that wishes to speak in favor?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Louis Hopkins. I'm here in favor. I'm the developer and the builder. And basically, I think y'all have covered everything. I'm just here for questions. Our plan was originally to build 28 units. It wasn't 42. And then after looking at it, I think 26 is the maximum we can build. Like Ms. Elaine said, it's unzoned now in the county. So we're trying to bring it into the city to get utilities and things like that and amenities that they offer for this property. But
Okay.
we would have to do the buffers and all that stuff and all the criteria that the city requires, which is more definitely than the county requires, no doubt. But
Right.
any questions for me?
Any questions? Mr. Hopkins?
Do you own it now?
I don't own it
Okay.
now.
Okay. Have you investigated what could go there if it's not in the city? I mean,
Well, I mean, yeah, it's unzoned. It could be metal buildings just like there. It could be anything. It's unzoned in the county. I mean, I can go to the county right now and get this permit. That's no problem. I don't have to annex it into the city.
can it be apartments?
Yes, it can be anything.
It can be apartments.
Yes. Yes, it's
So if you-
unzoned. It's unzoned. It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
So townhomes are different, but this could be apartments.
It can.
I had a question.
In the county is what I'm saying. In the county. I'm
That's
sorry,
correct.
Charlie. In the
That's
county,
correct.
they could. Okay.
That's
All
correct.
right.
Yes, sir.
And those surrounding houses are in the city,
That's correct. Yes, sir.
so this is kind of a donut,
Yes, sir.
what you call a donut hole.
Do you ever consider when you build those houses, build to sell rather than rent?
We do build some for both, and these we aren't 100% sure which way we will go. And to be honest with you, this process takes a while. So from today till time we finish them might be 18 months or so, and a lot of that's market driven. To be honest with you.
Mr. Hopkins, there was reference of a meeting with you and where the homeowners went over some of their issues.
I talked to the gentleman that was up here first, and he was concerned about some of the maintenance along Villa Toscana, and I told him that we would maintain in front of our property. I do think that's a public road, and I think they're on a public easement, and I think they've been maintaining a public easement. I don't think that's an issue with us, using that, but we would gladly keep it up and maintain it to the standards that it's done now.
Which is roughly half of the road?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. And Commissioners, is there any discussion before we call for the vote?
Well, I'm looking at, I didn't know apartments could go there. I mean, apartments opens up a whole different can of worms versus townhomes. That would be, if I lived there, if I had to pick between the two, I'd probably want to pick the townhomes versus the apartments. I can tell you that. This is a sense where you pick the lesser evil, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. It's the lesser evil of what can be there. I don't know. I think we do like to protect people's houses. I don't want to build my house and somebody put some crap beside it. But then again, be careful what you wish for, because if it's not annexed into the city, then I've seen people just roll on ahead with the county standards, and you get something you completely don't want. So I kind of vote for the lesser evil of if you got to pick something, what's the lesser problematic thing long term? I guess I don't know. I don't go over there that much. So that would be my discussion. I don't know how you guys feel. What do you?
Anybody else?
I heard her, and I feel her real, but building stuff at her house where she stay at, and where she put on. But that's why I asked him a question that he considered of selling rather than rent. And I understand you about rent. Rent you can get anybody in there when you start renting stuff, and that's one of my concerns. I wish he considered selling the townhouse, because a lot of townhouses they build in Florence now, they are selling those houses, and then that's one thing I would let him consider that, because he said a possibility. Well, a possibility could be anything, but that's the way I feel about it. If he was building to sell, I think you get better people in those houses. That's the way I feel about it.
Anybody else?
And the NC 6.3 that's the only.
That's the only zoning designation that permits townhouses. And to be fair, it does allow multifamily as well, but again, there are design standards for that as well.
Wait a minute now. Can multifamily go in this?
In the NC 6.3, it does allow townhomes, duplexes, and multiplexes, and then multifamily conditionally. I'm not sure if the parcel's large enough for multifamily.
Is it or isn't it?
I think for apartments, it's 100-foot width. You could, but I would have to do the math to figure out the number of units. But that is also the only designation that allows townhouses.
Okay. Anybody, anything else? Then, this is a tough one, and were it not for that unzoned area, I'm very much an advocate for homeowners and neighborhoods and that sort of thing. We've had these sorts of issues come before us before, and I won't say how we've voted on all of them, but generally when there's no buffer, when there's just a matter of changing the zone against a neighborhood, that's a higher hurdle. But there isn't an unzoned parcel right in the middle of it, and so that's the tough thing for me as I look at this. As it's been said, anything can go there. So, all right. Call for the vote. Anybody got a motion?
We consider something, but I want to come back with different things he wants to put there rather than anything to satisfy the neighborhood. That's what I'm just thinking about the neighborhood right now, and then the rent. That's my whole thing about the rent, rather than have a ownership.
I mean, once it's zoned, you really can't control it. There's no control of it, you know?
Yeah, I don't know that we could mandate.
I know we can't. Once we zone it, there's nothing else we can do.
Right.
But leaving it the way it is in the county.
Yep.
So the county they can pretty much, there's no restrictions in the county.
None.
So I hope that the residents understand that.
Well, I mean, they can go to the county planning and,
Yes.
that route. I'm just, if we don't annex it in, it becomes the county problem, and then you have no control over it. I think the reason for the city is our let me ask you another question. I'm sorry for the discussion, Chair.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just want to make sure we're investigating this fully
Why we're
before we
here.
behalf of these people. What do our services provide over the county? I mean, there's a reason why we want to annex this. I say this most of the time. I want to hear it again. The reason that they want to annex into the city is for the services, for the. Okay, all right. Okay, that's all.
We need a motion.
I'm thinking about the neighborhood.
You want to make a motion?
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It
And
is.
I'm thinking about the neighborhood, and I'm thinking about, I always believe in ownership. And see, if you own something, you know what you're gonna get there. But if you get a rental there, he's not gonna get it. And no way for us to govern it once he give him to annex it, because he gonna build the townhouses there, and then he's gonna rent them out. That's what he said. Because he didn't say no, yeah, he said possibility.
And he could do that right
Yes.
now.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. I don't know. Tough so.
Let me ask you another question. I'm just wondering, is any way that the community and this developer could possibly come to some sort of agreement of what he wants to do and what you're willing to see? I mean, I don't know if there's any bridge left to walk across, but we've done that before. We've had people, we've tabled this and people come back later and they've worked it out. I don't see that. I don't know if we can get there because he knows what he wants to do, and you guys already know what you want. So I think that's what we've heard tonight, Mr. Chairman. So I'm just trying to think of possibilities. I'm at a loss.
Yeah, sure. No. I'm sorry. We can't. No, you can't. We can't. We've had the open portion of this. I apologize, but this dilemma is up to us, and we've got to come to some
We can do
sort
this.
of action.
We can do a deferral and then have them talk to the community and come back.
Certainly,
We can do that.
absolutely. I mean, we need to do something.
Yeah, let's do it.
What if there's no motion, Jerry? I mean, what happens if nobody makes a motion?
Yeah, I mean, the matter will still go before city council because it's ultimately up to city council for annexation and zoning. Planning commission is tasked primarily with recommending a zoning for the property should it annex. So my report to city council would be that it failed to receive a motion at the Planning Commission meeting, and it would ultimately be up to City Council.
And so, as you say that, I should remind the audience, we are but a mere recommending body here. We have no authority whatsoever. We recommend to the City Council. That's who ultimately makes this decision. So
That's why I'm saying if there's a bridge, I'd certainly try to walk across it, because when it leaves this, we just recommend it. I mean, when it hits City Council, there's fewer of them, and you know, you got your representatives and stuff, and they're the elected officials. So in your district, you know, there will be one. There's many more than that. So they tend to take our recommendations seriously. I mean, obviously they're the ones that make the decision, but we're hearing everybody, and you'll get a chance again to go towards City Council. But you know, I just don't know. You never know what's going to occur in that setting. That's why I'm asking about some sort of bridge, something to take to them. I don't think we can get that.
Well, I've heard two questions about a motion. But I need a motion, one way or the other.
But do you think the developer and the community can get together and it's referred to next meeting?
I think that's certainly an option.
Well, if we defer it 1 month,
Yeah.
at least it just gives them time to talk, I
Sure.
guess. You know, and if you come back next month and it says, well, look, you know, we couldn't get anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, then we either don't vote on it, like we're saying tonight, or we make a motion and vote on it, or
I rather defer it and let the community and the developer get together.
Okay, that's in the
That's
form of motion.
Yes, it is.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
There's a second. Okay. Any discussion? All right, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then we will defer this, give the parties an opportunity to talk again, see if there's some common ground that you can reach, so that we can all find an acceptable solution to this dilemma. Okay.
motion to adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion to
Second.
adjourn. Is there a second for that?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you for being here.